There being a quorum present, I call this meeting of the Margate Planning Board to order. Please stand for the flag salute, the big one. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This meeting is being held in accordance with due public notice thereof and pursuant to the New Jersey State Sunshine Law. Notice of this meeting was advertised in the press, and a copy of same has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building. All applicants are hereby advised that should you receive board approval tonight, you must come forward and sign a form which informs you regarding the timing of receiving building permits and mercantile licenses. At the end of your case tonight, please see the board administrator to sign the two information sheets. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of the past meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. I'd like to hear a motion for approval of resolutions and decisions. Number 23, 2013, J&D Development Company. Number 24, 2013, Sensational Desserts, LLC. Number 25, 2013, Cousins, LLC. Number 26, 2013, Atlantic City Electric Company.
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. First case tonight is Robert Plaka, 25 North Hanover Avenue, Block 210.01, Lot 4, in the S25 district, to grant a C variance for height, side, and front setbacks, building coverage, and possibly others. Taxes are current, and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied. Mr. Rubin?
Roger Rubin. I do. The subject property is a two-story single-family home on a lot of 40 feet by 67 and a half feet, which is 2,700 square feet. The applicant, via the submitted plans by Harry Harper Architect, wishes to renovate the home, which has apparently been in the family since about 1965, with a complete interior-exterior renovation, a slight enlargement of the second floor, addition of a second-floor deck over the front porch, and a proposed elevation of the house in consideration of FEMA requirements after Superstorm Sandy. In addition, an elevator will be installed, as shown, with an apparent entrance door from the driveway. The site would be improved by a rear yard substitution of inlaid pavers replacing concrete. The variance is requested in the comments. Combined side setbacks. The second floor addition, creating an office space within the reconfigured master bedroom, and a deck off of that bedroom exceeds the one side setback requirement of 5 feet, being 8 feet 2 inches from the right property line. However, the combined side setback requirement of 14.8 feet is not met at 10.8 feet for both sides. The board will consider impacts, if any, in terms of building mass as perceived from the street or the rear, as well as matters of light and air penetration. Secondly, front setback. It is 4 feet 10 inches to the new second floor deck, lining it up with the existing first floor porch. This is de minimis and not perceivable to the naked eye, and there can be no impact of same. Number 3, note the application states there is a coverage variance, but I don't think this is correct. It appears the coverage is the same presently and proposed and that the second-floor addition of enclosed space is directly over the first-floor enclosed space. If this is correct, there is no coverage variance. Finally, building height. The height maximum is 28 feet above elevation 12, 88 datum. And the applicant is proposing to lift the house to 27 feet, 8 inches above elevation 14.55. This translates to a height variance of 2.22 feet, or 2 feet 3 inches. No specific reasons for the height are given other than to make the house as flood-proof as possible. The board should consider the reasons which may be given in testimony at the hearing and decide whether they are compelling as compared to the additional mass of building coming out of the ground at 2.22 feet higher than permitted. It may be noted that the new preliminary work map promulgated on June 14th lowered the elevation requirement at this site such that the first floor would be 10 feet NAVD 88, and the variance would be 4 feet 3 inches if the applicant came in after that date. If approved, no conditions are suggested at this time.
That's it. That's all I got.
Thank you for your time and attention. My name is James Swift of the Swift Law Firm. I'm here tonight on behalf of Mr. Robert Plaka, who's the applicant, who's sitting to my left in the front row. We have with us tonight Mr. Harry Harper, who's the architect who prepared the plans. In addition, we have Mr. Lou Capone, who works with drafting these plans, and could be some explanation. In addition, we have our design Plaka is here. Respectfully, board members, we are going to request that the board grant this application. I think we have good reasons argument to justify some of the exceptions that we're asking for. other variances that we've asked for. In a relative sense, I'm going to adopt and request that the board go with Mr. Rubin's comments. Apparently, the focus on this application is going to be the height variance. I did include the coverage variance because, frankly, I wasn't 100% sure, so I'd rather err. And if the board could give us the time and attention and consideration of this unique design, given the history of Sandy, given the fact that this property has already flooded, and given the fact that this young man, what he wants to do is has had some physical issues. I think this would help him enjoy his family's property, and candidly, I don't think it would draw or hurt anybody else's property whatsoever. And again, he's been here since 1965. I happen to know Rob very, very well. I'm going to respectfully request that the board entertain a few comments from him. At this point in time, I'd like to call Mr. Harper and Mr. Capone and have them testify about some of the design components and what went into this. By the way, this is our third go-around. Our first go-around was pre-Sandy. Our second go-around was post-Sandy, and our third go-around was after FEMA changed the requirements. Harper and Mr. Capone have come up with. So at this point in time, I'd like to call our experts. What's that?
May I have your full name, please?
Yes, Harry.
If you could, as briefly as possible.
Well, I'm going to start it, and I'm going to let Lou work on it with me. So, I just want to start off with the whole thing. Not that I've got the same age as Lou.
part of that was to raise the utility room up, so we're going to bring that up to the current floor line to match everything else. And that was in 2012. The drawings were done. Debbie's Price came in. They went under contract. We were ready to move forward, and then Sandy hit. Okay? We sat tight. We talked to Rob about ideas, and then at the time, we knew what the variances, or not the variance, what the heights would have to be, which we talked about. Well, now this can really supply my needs, which would be obviously put an elevator in this house. So at that point, we designed this house. We put the elevator together. We threw all the original drawings away. We came back with this design. We did the preliminaries. We talked to Roger. We moved forward, and now we get the post, obviously, requirements moving for the new flood elevations. As Roger has mentioned, we'd like to see that we're asking for the original variance when that data submittal, which is 2 feet 4 inches, and not ask and not even be considered it as a 4 foot 4 inch variance, because it is a preliminary situation right now, as we know it, and we would like to move forward as the day we submitted these drawings. And at this point, I'm going to bring up Rob to talk a little bit more about it, because nothing more or less has changed in this house other than, you know, what we're asking for. The key to this whole project is the elevator. This is very important to him, obviously, for more ways than one. So even, you know, his father's, you know, is ill, and he spends this was his father's house. He spent many years there, since '65, and he still comes down here and spends time with the family. Rob is married, and, you know, and he wants his whole family here together. Based on what we would have to do if we didn't have this elevator, as you know, in the site plan, we would have 10 steps up there. And you know what it's looked like around here. I mean, someday Rob's not going to be able to walk up 10 steps, okay? I'm going to turn it over to Rob, and then we'll go back.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
But let me ask this about the considerations that
Yeah.
let's say, abut someone else's property from an aesthetic point of view.
Yeah, Harry and I both feel that way. It was a cosmetic situation. You know, Rob didn't want to make the house look like it was handicap accessible. He didn't want to put the ramps coming up from the rear of the garage, moving forward and getting into its front door. So what we do is we decided to take, since this was an interior renovation, we decided to put the elevator on the inside, okay? And to do this, at the time that what FEMA was allowing us to do, to take advantage of, we felt, well, if we can ask for a 2 foot variance, 2 feet 4 inch variances, we can keep the whole elevator on the inside. Nothing really changes to the aesthetics of this whole house, except it's more modernized. We're keeping it so it doesn't, you know, it's not an eyesore for him, and he doesn't feel embarrassed, you know, looking at this house with an elevator on the outside shaft.
Can I also ask you too, by doing this, is also the
Yeah, it would be close to 70 feet of ramp if we had to do this. You know, we would obviously have the stairwell, and then we would have to ramp it from the back end coming forward, which would take up the parking spots, which means now we're back for a parking variance. We wouldn't have any all-street parking spots at that point.
And also, can I ask you too, in terms of is to permit Rob or whoever is going to have access to be able to walk straight from the driveway, ground level, into the elevator without like ducking down, or, you know, obviously it'd be more
Yeah, this design will not work, obviously, if we didn't have the height variance that we need, because we wouldn't be able to walk through it. We couldn't duck down. I mean, we wouldn't have the requirements. I don't think we can get a building permit to do that. So at that point, the doors would have to be on the outside, the well would have to be put in, and then this is a hardship that Rob does not want to go through, and that's the reason we're in front of this board.
And also too, if I may ask Mr. Capone, based upon the in dealing with applications post-Sandy, the insurance company
They want us to go higher, and Robbie wants to be at this point, because we talked to Rob about this, and he says he's worried in 5 years, everything we're reading, this could be again in 5 years. He wants to be above this. He's willing to spend the time and the money to do this as a taxpayer, as a homeowner, and he's here because this is what he wants, you know.
I do have Mr. Block. explain to the board members the reason that
Thank you, Jim. Oh, sure. Robert Plotka. Yeah, we've been here since 1965. I was born in 1965. My parents actually moved into the house a few months before I was born. So this was the house that I was born and raised in. And ideally, we'd like to keep, my parents actually moved about a little over a year ago to a 55 and up community in Egg Harbor Township because they could no longer climb the steps. And I wanted to keep the house in the family, so in March of 2012, my wife and I purchased the house. Unfortunately, a few months later, my mom was diagnosed with late-stage lung cancer, and 7 months. During the next 7 months, she broke both her hips. She was immobile for most of that time, and she suffered greatly. But the key here is that for a small positive note is that if she had been in the house, in the Margate house, there's really no, because she could no longer climb those steps, because we had steps on the outside, it would have been extremely difficult and almost impossible, not only for her, but for my dad and the rest of the family caring for her. Whereas with the new house, everything was on the first floor, and we simply had one step. We put in a little ramp. So in that respect, it worked out. And what I've learned from that experience primarily is that while you can't necessarily predict the future, you can at least plan for it. I don't know at what point in time I'll necessarily be incapacitated and require help from others, but I can at least at this point plan for it. And that's one of the main reasons why we wanted to have this elevator go from the ground floor all the way up to the second floor. And just as further background, when I was born with a hereditary bone disease called multiple hereditary exotoses, and what that does is it's resulted in 100, 200 bone spurs throughout my body, and whenever those bone spurs interfere with joint movements, tendons, ligaments, whatever that may be, surgery is required to remove those bone spurs. And to date, I've easily had over 12 surgeries, some of which relating directly to that illness, and others relating to some bone deformities that I had at birth as well. So while I don't know exactly when those future surgeries are going to be, I do expect to have more surgeries in the past, and I'd like to once again be prepared for that. And I'd like to thank everyone here for allowing me to speak on my behalf. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Sure.
Debbie, do you want to say anything? Sure. And I have briefly, this is Debbie Bukowski. She's our designer. She's participated in the design of the house, and obviously she
Bob is doing something very unique by saving his home in Margate. It's maintaining the lovely charm that our town has. He's not ripping it down and putting up a 2.5-story cookie-cutter home. He's doing something unique that really works for him and his lovely wife. Hopefully they'll be reproducing and be able to use the extra space very, very well. We've been working on this plan for a long time. We're going to need to be, I think that Rob coming to you and involving you in his personal struggle was costly to him, and I think that's a very big deal. we're ready to help him in any way possible to make his living situation as comfortable and as user-friendly as possible, and beautiful. Beautiful in a Margate way, you know, in the old world Margate way. Jim, what could I contribute?
I think you contributed pretty well.
I hope you'll
Unless
give...
the board obviously has questions.
Can I help anyone with this? We don't know what's going to happen with the Heights. Nobody knows what's going to happen with the Heights. And it would be this very, very significant advantage if we were allowed to raise it up. Me and my team helped clean up Rob's house, like so many other houses after the storm. I don't think anybody should have to go through that again if they're willing to spend the money and invest in the neighborhood that they grew up in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just briefly, too, Mr. Plaka has come up here, you know, obviously from a pretty significant distance to be here to explain to the board members the situation. And can I ask Mr. Capone and Mr. Harper just a couple quick questions? That based upon your professional experience, based upon what's happening with FEMA, based upon what's happening with engineering recommendations and designs and insurance situations, is a height variance that we're seeking here out of order?
I don't think it is.
Let me ask you, the design considerations that were taken into effect, are these more consistent with what's happening post-Sandy in addition to the recommendations and requirements of modern building as opposed to the old building? All right. And especially the way the elevator was designed on the inside with no ramps, with no obtrusive cutout of the building. Is your professional opinion that that is, let's say, taking the neighbors' setbacks and any possible impact on the neighbors into consideration and more beneficial?
I think it benefits the community largely because
I don't have any other further questions.
Harry, I don't understand the engineering of it, obviously, but Mike, the elevator is a shaft all the way up 2 or 3 floors, correct? Could the door, if you lower the house, I don't understand why you would have to stoop. Could the house be lowered and the door stay the same height?
No, because the floor has to be down.
But it's a shaft all the entire way up.
You have to get off the elevator, for the sake of argument, so you're going to go in this door,
Right.
and you're going to make a turn, and you're going to go in the elevator.
Oh, that's not right into the elevator.
No, you're in the elevator.
Okay. I didn't see that on the plan.
It's not there. It's not there. It's 6 foot.
It could be 6 foot.
The door should be 6 foot 8 for the 7 foot 8.
But you need to have, yeah, it should be 6 foot.
Double door, 6 foot 8.
You're still going in about 7 foot inside.
Inside.
And then you're only 10 inches of construction, so you're going to want it at 7 foot 10. So I could put a 6-8 door, to answer your question, yes, I could. But it doesn't help me once I get inside.
So, wait. Okay, so when you walk in that door, you're not in the elevator shaft.
Right, you're going to open
Thank
the
you.
door, you're going to turn, and then you're going to open the door to the elevator.
Okay, that answers my question.
And then out, the door stays out.
Okay.
And then when it goes up, you're going to come out just right above it.
Well, I understand that part. I thought you were walking right into the
No,
elevator.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Range coverage.
He can walk in and have range.
Plans were very unclear, that's.
When you got out,
I built more than a few houses with elevators, and why do you need the alcove? If you didn't have the alcove and you just had the door that went directly to the elevator, then you wouldn't need the height variance.
place to go.
Huh?
the door or you stop between the first and second floor?
No, but the cab would always sit up at the first floor, and then when you called it, it would come down to the ground, you'd open the door, you'd go in, and like you were saying, it's just a shed.
Well, the first floor door would be here, they would overlap, but they're not on the same floor, so it'll be open.
It doesn't matter.
I understand that, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I've done it. It's not like I'm talking hypothetically. I'm sure Mr. Galantino has seen examples of that, too.
Yeah, and the key here, as Rob has mentioned, is it could be done that way. Two things he doesn't want. Eventually, when he's going to have a hard time getting out of the car, into the elevator shaft, wait for it to drop down to the first floor, either rain, snow, or anything it may be. Two things that he doesn't want is that scenario, and he doesn't want it to look like an elevator shaft. He doesn't want it to feel like an elevator shaft, like it's an ADA type one.
Put that
So he
aside
wanted to be
for a
high.
second,
Right.
you're only going to save maybe a foot.
Right.
A foot? No, you would say,
A foot. Maybe a foot.
I'm not following you.
The door is 6'8".
Right.
You still got the construction of the floor above it no matter what.
Yeah, but you just I've done it. I've actually taken houses and that didn't have an elevator and put them in there. And the door, forget about if you didn't have the alcove. The door, you can use a decorative door and you just walk in, you call the, now that's true, you're going to have to call the elevator, so it's going to take a couple seconds for it to drop. If you're worried about weather, you could possibly do some type of awning or something. I don't know, but all I'm saying is that it could be done without. If you didn't have the alcove, you would not need the height variance. You would be able to open up the door, walk into the elevator, and go to stop at the first floor and stop at the second floor.
That's correct. The two reasons he doesn't want to do cosmetic condition, cosmetic of the house, and obviously to coverage. He wants the coverage to be inside that space, that under conditioned space, before he gets on that space.
Okay.
And it's important to him, or else he wouldn't be here, or else he would have thrown in 2.5 hours.
Right.
That's one of the considerations, is that we wanted to hopefully have a design that when you look at the place, you're not going to say, there's someone who's got some physical issues. He wants to make this look like a normal house. And, instead of having a box on the outside.
These has to work on the same plane, because obviously you have a two-door system. One's on the side, one comes this way. As the one that we're playing going straight up all the way up the house. We designed it that way, the floor plan, so that it was a parallel straight up. The grade cars on the second floor down to the level. And it's going to be architecturally pleasing. This is going to be a showcase. He's very art deco. The whole thing, this is his whole package. This is what he wants.
Right, but if I understand correctly, now that the FEMA maps have been set, this house will actually be, moving forward, if somebody else came in, this house will actually be 4 feet above?
No, the rule is it's the time of application. So the variance is only 2 feet 3 inches
Right.
for this applicant.
Right.
I'm sorry, what's the question?
Well, moving forward, if somebody else, comes in next week and they want to build a house.
If he sold the house to somebody else, and they came in with an application to do something like that, it would be a 4.5-foot variance. Yeah.
Right, so the house is going to be 4.5 feet from moving forward, from other half. Do you follow what I'm saying?
The neighbors' houses would be 4.5 feet underneath this house if they came in to build new houses.
Next door. Right, yeah.
No.
Yeah, if,
We're in that time of submittal.
That's what it would be for the new.
Right, but the new
At the time we submitted this application, the requirements were basically different, and we were asking for a 2.22-foot variance. And I think that's the essence of this application. And I'm going to be honest with you, based upon the federal government, the insurance company's influence on what's going on, I would not bet a lot of money that these FEMA requirements and regulations are going to be the same in 6 months or 8 months. We might be here in a whole drawing board. And candidly, we came here in good faith and submitted our application with the regulations in place at the time. FEMA changed them horse in midstream. And candidly, every single engineer and architect we talked to said, if there's an issue about going lower, what we have here today, try to go a little higher. We're not asking for a 4-story building here.
I think what we're saying here is, this is acceptable right now, but if the neighbors on either side come in with the new compliances, they're going to be 4 foot lower. It's going to be a new rule, but we're going to have to live with that. And I think that's what we do sitting up here, is think of the future and what the issues are going to be. You know, none of us even know that. But we know right now that you're 6 courses higher.
What's that?
You're 6 courses a block higher at this point. So now if next door neighbor comes in to build and they tear down, that's what they want to build, we're going to have to live with that. So now we got the oop-op thing on. So I think that's where the whole board's heading.
Mike, just clarification, I understand what you're saying, and 4 feet does seem like a lot, but everybody who's already built at that higher elevation has already done it. So to me, we can't control what's going to happen in the future. I don't think we can make our decision based upon what might be or what could be. I think you really have to look at the neighborhood and the house before you...
I'm totally doing that, Tom. I really am. This isn't an argument.
Not just that somebody else might get slammed because they changed the rules. Well, that's life. So I'm just saying that argument doesn't seem like it's a strong enough argument to for or against the thing.
Does the board have any further questions? Clem?
There seems to be a lot of controversy here about this height situation. Harry, could this vestibule be put behind the shaft?
I'm sorry, but I didn't hear what you said.
Could this vestibule be put behind the shaft where the machine room is shown? And then you come up a half?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I've looked at this thing, I've twisted this thing 20 different ways. When you come in, we want to be able to come in the building, have some headroom, back your wheelchair into the elevator.
Yeah, well, you could if you did that. Put a little extension behind the shaft, make it 7 foot high, whatever you need. Come into the cab, go up a half a floor.
Then you'd have to back out of the elevator.
Well, you'd have doors on both sides of the shaft and the cab.
And it would be a bigger elevator.
It's a more expensive elevator.
It's a much bigger elevator. I just, it is what it is. It becomes a cage. You have to have a cage on it. Once you introduce another door, don't ask me why, they add a cage to the elevator.
You'd have a side cage, a front cage. That'd be more expensive.
But part of this too is that this mechanical was actually the existing space. We used the footprint that was already there before.
Yeah,
Not change any of this.
what I'm suggesting would require a slightly larger footprint. Well, one other thing, in the front of the house, you have a planter area, and then there's some grass in front of that. You could raise that planter up 2 or 3 feet high, might give you a little transition, so the house wouldn't look as high.
Good point.
Yeah, great idea. I don't see any problem with that being part of
We could actually tier it, Clint. We could terrace.
And Mike, I don't think I answered. We did the application. We sought a 2 foot 3 inch variance. FEMA.
Yeah, nothing else. Nothing else should be considered.
Right.
Okay.
And that's it. And what's going to happen in the future, I have no idea. And especially after Sandy, I think all bets are off. And FEMA has been so inconsistent, so upside down, so back and forth. Everyone thought it was going to be all kinds of different V zones and so. So to base our decision on a quality application as to what FEMA may or may not do in the future. I mean, I know what the requirements were when we made this application. In the future, that's a heck of a lot of speculation. And I think what we've done in here is, this is our 3rd go-around. I mean, the bottom line is, FEMA switched gears on us before. We've come back, and I think we've designed something that takes all these factors into consideration. And what's going to happen in the future? I mean, Mike, your guess is as good as mine.
Mike, one of the scariest things is, in Brigantine, there are now zones, that probably everybody remembers, they put V zones in the middle of the golf course, okay? They have no V zones now. We now have areas in Brigantine that require no flood insurance. None. And these are areas that took 3 and 4 feet water hits in houses that were at elevation 9 and 10. And they've now made them I'm sure you've heard that discussion from Rich over there. I mean, it's crazy. So somewhere along the line, someone's going to say something and say, wait a minute, this doesn't look right. And that is a concern. I think a lot of people are trying to get this thing settled down, get their houses where they need to be. This is just an unusual situation. I wouldn't be surprised a year and a half from now they come back and do it again. Because these are, again, what do they quote? Preliminary maps. I don't know. But I'm just giving you that, for instance, that's how ridiculous it got in Brigantine. They've actually gotten areas that are out of the flood zone. And I'm telling
Anything else, Jim? Board have any further questions? Is there anyone here from the public who would like to speak? Any neighbors? Seeing none, I close the public portion. Any other discussion by the board? The only condition I heard mentioned was the landscaping. Is that to be a condition, or?
So Mr. Kozlowski's recommendation.
Clem, can you clarify what could you please clarify the condition you're suggesting? About
Landscape landing area.
Could you use the mic so we can get it on?
The site plan shows a planting area to the street side of the house.
Right.
In between which the sidewalk and which is a grass area. There's appear to be from the photographs at the same level now. I'm proposing that the planting area between the sidewalk, between the grass and the house, be raised plus or minus 30 inches and planted appropriately to give a vertical transition from the low sidewalk grass area up to the
You're okay with
higher
that?
part of the house.
No objection.
How would the 30 inches be contained? You're suggesting it?
There'd have to be a wall of some type.
Okay.
There are many types of masonry.
Okay.
Yeah, good decorative paving, tier in, starting 20s, or below.
Okay. That's the only condition that I know of.
Sam?
This is, as the board knows, an application for essentially C variances, combined side setback. They requested 10.8 feet. The requirement's 14.8 feet. Front yard setback is minimal. They're requesting 4 feet 10 inches. What's permitted is 5 feet. The building height, it is a 2.2-foot variance at this point in time. We had discussion about that. And as to the coverage request for Mr. Swift, just for the record, Jim, it's less than 3,000 square feet, the lot, so it only needs 40% coverage under the code. So you don't need a variance for that.
Yeah, so we included the garage, which is attached all the time, the code would say that this would be part of the total coverage, it's an attached garage, even though it's not accessible from the inside.
Okay.
Yeah, but the point is you have not increased the coverage.
Correct.
It's over the coverage, it hasn't increased, therefore it's not a variance.
At the worst, it's just an existing non-conforming issue. Okay. So it's a technical variance, and we'll put that in there. Exciting. So there'd be a motion for those variances at this point in time, Mr. Patterson.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll second.
Tom Collins?
When you look at this neighborhood and look at this house property in the neighborhood, the actual height was very concerning to me. After looking at the application tonight and listening to the evidence presented, I actually feel that the height variance would actually be more minimal than if we had a shaft and a side yard variance because the properties are so tight. I also feel that because of the special needs in this case, and I know what I would want if I wouldn't want to be sitting in the rain waiting for an elevator in a wheelchair, or trying to get up a wet ramp. So, based upon the evidence presented tonight, I think that this will be a benefit to the community, it'll be a benefit to the neighborhood, it'll improve the neighborhood, so I vote in favor.
Initially, I didn't think I was going to be able to support the height variance, but after hearing about the special needs of the owner, I think it is more than justified. I vote yes.
Michael Richmond?
I think the over 2-foot height variance is pretty substantial, and like I said, I've also been involved in projects where, you know, we made it work. If there wasn't a foyer, there was just a door to the elevator. There's a lot of houses in Margate that have grade level doors that are for storage or whatever, so I don't really think that just because somebody had a grade level door that it would necessarily mean it was an ADA house, so I think I'm going to vote against it.
Jim Galantino?
I'm a flood guy, so you get the houses higher, the better. I always like the fact that people are elevating their structures to get out of the flood zone. It gives us a credit to our CRS, which is our community rating system. We get a discount. If you look at your flood insurance, you just see a little note at the bottom. It says we get a 20% discount. So this house will actually help our CRS by giving us an additional credit on our flood insurance discount. On the combined yard, front yard, and building height, I vote yes. I think it's an asset.
I'm going to echo Clem Bosleski. I was concerned about the height variance. It's an awkward period for us with the FEMA changes. But what I've had to just remind myself is that even after the maps are finalized, if the homes next to Mr. Plaka's are 4 feet shorter, then, you know, that's just the way it is, because we have to just look at the application being considered and what the laws are now. So I vote yes.
Michael Cristoli?
I'm in agreement with Jim Galantino on, you know, with the height restrictions and everything on the flood, the higher the better for our insurance rates and everything. And there's no neighbors here to complain about it, and that's a biggie. So I'm going to vote yes on the variance.
Craig?
I also agree with Jim Galantino's analysis of it. Other houses on the street could be raising up at any time, and the 2'2" that the variance is requiring is okay with me. I accept it. Yes, I'm for it.
Situation, and I think it's just a matter of time, and something has to be done, so I vote yes.
When FEMA first proposed these rules initially before this latest change, there was a lot of discussion about, well, these new houses next to the other houses are going to look ridiculous. And this is a new world, and that's just the way it's going to be. And I think this falls into the same consideration. Again, I was one that never thought I was going to vote yes for this. It sounded like a no-brainer to vote no. But I guess we can't consider that some houses will be higher than others, because it is going to change, and it's going to keep changing, and there's not going to be low houses anymore. So I vote yes. Next case is Bernard Crick, 348 North Rumson Avenue, Block 619, Lot 12, in the S40 district to grant a C variance for pool equipment setback. Taxes are current, and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied. Mr. Rubin?
Roger Rubin. I do. The subject property is a Sunset Canal property containing a two-story, single-family house on a lot of 60 by 100, including a portion in the canal. Applicants propose a rear yard swimming pool and wood frame deck as portrayed in the submitted plan by Arthur W. Ponzio Associates, and the pool and deck require no variances. The pool equipment is proposed to be located along the left wall of the house, about 2/3 back from the front. It measures 3 feet by 7 feet and would be 7.3 feet from the left property line. Variance required is pool equipment setback. 10 feet is required on the side versus 7.3 feet as shown. Comments. Approval, if granted, is subject to city engineer's site approval of the deck around the pool. The left side neighbor has 4 large air conditioner units and its own pool equipment arrayed on the wall facing this area, set slightly closer to the street. They also have a pool in their backyard slightly rearward of the applicant's pool equipment location. 3, as always, site visits by the board members are germane regarding impacts, if any, such as noise or aesthetics. Finally, per the ordinance requirement, the equipment must be housed in a noise-reducing structure. Applicant should supply a design of said structure. That's it.
Brian Callahan, the law firm Callahan, Thompson & Thompson, on behalf of Bernard and Miriam Crick. Mr. Rubin said it's property located 348 North Rumsden Avenue, lot 619, lot 12. What we're here tonight for is a pool equipment variance. The requirement on the side yard is 10 feet. We're proposing 7.3. Let me call Mr. Barnhart to walk you through the site and get you acclimated with exactly the variance we're needing and why we have justifications.
There we go. As Brian pointed out, the property is known as Block 619, Lot 12. It is a 60-foot lot right on Sunset Canal on Rumsden Avenue. The application is rather simple, and we think a perfect fit for the property. The application is to construct a pool in the rear yard of the dwelling, somewhat similar to the neighbor immediately adjacent to this property owner. We just recently were fortunate enough to receive NJDEP CAFRA approval for the pool as well as the pool equipment. The reason for the application this evening is the equipment itself. All of the setbacks and coverage requirements associated with the pool structure are conforming to the land use ordinance. So the variance requested this evening is to allow a 3-foot by 7-foot pool equipment area on the left side yard if you're standing on Rumsden facing the dwelling, which allows a 7.3-foot side yard setback where 10 feet is required. We've done a number of these, and you've heard these before. Basically, when you look at pool equipment placement, it's really about what's most appropriate. How does it affect the neighbor immediately adjacent, because it's always a noise issue. So Mr. Crick chose this location for a very obvious reason if you're able to visit the site. I guess we'll call this Exhibit A2.
A2 would be the 2 pictures.
These are 2 photos of the neighboring property. And you can see this photo is taken standing in the side yard against Mr. Crick's house and facing the property to the left. You can see the 4 condensing units, the pool equipment, the pool heater, all lined up along the side of the dwelling immediately adjacent to Mr. Crick's property. And then a second photo taken from the backyard of Mr. Crick's property. Again, looking back toward the home, you can see all the equipment. And just to put it into perspective for you, you can see that rhododendron bush right there. That's approximately the location if we were to superimpose Mr. Crick's equipment into that photo as to where his equipment will be. So when you look at appropriate location for your equipment to make sure you're not creating a negative impact to your neighbor, we believe that this is a very appropriate location. And given the requirement to provide some type of noise deadening structure around this, we believe that he will not have a negative impact on his adjacent property owner.
And the neighbor adjacent property owner, his distance
Yeah, he actually has a large setback on his side. So if you want to look at equipment to equipment, you're required to have 10 feet from your property line per your ordinance. The aggregate distance between the two, because this home is set further off that line, actually still complies, meaning you'll have an excess of 20 feet between the two pieces of equipment.
And from a noise factor point of view, we're not saying he's going to hear anything from our noise equipment, given the fact that he has 4 condensers.
Yeah, I mean, in general terms, the pool pumps and heaters are relatively as quiet or quieter than HVAC units, so.
I don't have any other questions, Mr. Barnhart. I would open up the...
Question in terms of Roger's report. Are you going to put a structure around this for sound deadening or?
Yes. So as a condition, Rogers, per item number 4, there would be a structure built around it to also baffle any additional noises.
And can you give us an idea what that structure would be comprised of, or?
We haven't talked to Mr. Crick about a final decision, but in general terms, people have done them out of sections of vinyl fence with a top on them. We've been involved where individuals have done them with cedar, just to make them look nice with the house. We'll submit a final design of it to Roger for approval, but we haven't made a final decision on what the material would be.
But vinyl fence would magnify, is that right, Roger? The noise?
Depends on the height.
On the height?
If it has a top.
Don't we have an ordinance to lattice it? Don't we have an ordinance to lattice in the condenser?
The ordinance requires a shelter.
So basically, what my understanding is then that you're going to submit and get Roger's approval for the final one?
That's correct.
What would the elevation of the pool equipment be?
Above grade, or it's my understanding the pool equipment is not required to meet the FEMA requirements, but Jim, you may know better than I in that. Am I correct in that statement?
You are. That's, I think you're zone 8, or no, you're zone A9.
Right.
So you'd be 1 foot above, so you'd probably be 3 feet above grade. Is that fair?
But the pool equipment, yeah, I would say that's approximately correct, but is pool equipment required to meet the FEMA requirement?
You would file a claim with it, wouldn't you? If you lost it, it would be a claim. If you got to consider...
I don't know if they cover it.
They do.
They do?
Anything mechanical. It's not a part of your house.
It's not a mechanical part of the house, it's a pool filter. It wouldn't be covered.
I can't see how they make you elevate condensers.
I was made to put mine at 11 feet.
Your
pool equipment?
If your heater, air conditioning, anything that's complete, that's supplying the whole house, but the pool filter wouldn't.
Why would you want to become submerged in the first place? If you have the potential to elevate it now?
I know,
It's
but I'm
common
just
sense.
saying, if it's submerged or not submerged, then you're still not going to get paid if it gets flooded.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
I mean,
We have to get a permit from you, Jim, so.
Well, excuse me, but you have windows right there, too, where they're going to be. They're not shown on the drawing.
We did not anticipate...
Did you see the windows?
There's no windows on the neighbors, so it wouldn't affect those. I consider that their problem. If it's not affecting the neighbor,
As can be seen from the photograph, I mean, the neighbors, we did not intend to have it as elevated as the neighbor, because as you can see, he's just about higher than his fence that goes around. Yeah, they're high up. And he's not.
John, has your client, Mr. Crick, has he talked to the neighbor that has all those condensers? Does he have a problem with the variance? No. No.
Is he the neighbor?
No, he's the owner.
Aaron Chris, A-R-I-S-A.
Seeing that the board has no other questions, is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak? The public portion is closed. I think the board has no further comments, so we'd like to hear a motion.
Yeah, the conditions would be, well, there needs to be city engineer's site plan approval of the deck, which you understand, I've mentioned this, you know this, John, you know this, Brian, and the 8 sets of revised plans showing the noise-reducing structure.
I'll make that one.
I'll second.
Jim, does the equipment have to be at FEMA height? Yes.
The condition, from what I'm hearing, is that the pool equipment has to be at the FEMA height, base elevation.
Jim, does the equipment have to be at...
Yes, we just answered. Yes.
Yes.
Even if it's...
He just asked it. He did not say that.
Yes, he did.
Okay. It's not the FEMA height.
Is that considered a fixture, not a fixture? I mean, the condensers are a fixture.
I'm looking at them and waiting to hear what your response, and I haven't heard it.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Neighborhood, I think the decks and the pools in the back will be a improvement for the homeowner and the neighborhood, so I vote in favor.
Ordinarily, I'd have a problem with something like this, but seeing the massive equipment the neighbor has pretty close to it, I don't think you're going to notice a bit of difference once this goes into operation. I vote yes.
Yeah, I think the setback issue is not an issue in this case, so I'm going to vote yes.
Jim Galantino.
I'm sorry, what was the variance again? It was variance for side yard setback, right?
Flood elevation.
And flood, okay. I vote. Okay. I vote yes for the side yard setback for the pool equipment. Thank you.
I vote yes for all the reasons that everyone has previously mentioned.
I see no impact whatsoever. I vote yes.
I vote yes also.
I think Mr. Crick needs the noise from his pool equipment to drown out the noise from his neighbor's pool equipment, so I vote yes.
Thank you very much.
Next case is Fred and Barbara White, 14 South Rumson Avenue, Block 119, Lot 16 in the S60 district, to grant a C variance for building height. Taxes are current and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied. Mr. Rubin?
Roger Rubin. I do. Subject property is a parcel of land 94 feet wide by 80 feet deep and 7,520 square feet in area, upon which, per the submitted plans by Asher Associates, architects, a 2.5-story single-family home is proposed. containing 6 bedrooms and 4 off-street parking spaces, a swimming pool, numerous covered porches and other amenities, a freestanding garage, and a cabana structure attached to the garage. Now, I'm going to substitute for paragraph 1 about building height. As of 2 o'clock this afternoon, we have determined there is no building height variance for this case. The applicant has taken advantage, as was their right, to use the new preliminary FEMA HUD elevations. They lowered the first floor down to that level and then discovered that they only had about an 18-inch crawl space. The ordinance that you guys approved in January, Ordinance 1-2013, allowed the ABFE Design Committee, which consisted of myself, Mr. Galantino, and a member of the board chosen by the chairman, who chose himself. And we met this afternoon, and we determined that that crawl space, that 18-inch crawl space, was insufficient, and it needed to be raised up by an additional foot. And that committee then had the right to allow an extra foot in height at the top of the house. So that whole administrative procedure eliminated the height variance. And the only thing we're now considering is item 2 of my review, the size of the accessory structure. The maximum size of any accessory structure is 80 square feet and 9 feet in height. The appendage to the garage, which is called a cabana, is actually not part of the garage, but an accessory structure or use which happens to be attached to the garage, which attachment is permitted. It is, however, 100 square feet in area and 14 feet high versus the permitted 80 square feet in area and 9 feet in height permitted. Considerations regarding these variances would include physically a garage storage appendage would be permitted at the precise location with interior garage access. The activity level within the cabana is somewhat shielded from neighbors by the access points and the roof. Aesthetics may also be considered, including the design as a unified structure rather than an additional freestanding building, the attractive French doors of the design, etc. The other accessory structure, the outdoor kitchen, meets the area requirements. The height should be notated by revised plans as meeting the 9-foot height maximum. Overall aesthetics of the house itself may be a significant consideration regarding the architecture as presented.
Thank you very much, Mr.
You're
Roop.
welcome.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Talley, members of the board, my name is Chris Bailenson. I represent the Whites. Fred is here with us this evening with regard to the property they now own at 14 South Rumson Avenue, located in the S60 zoning district, identified in your tax map as Block 119, Lot 16. It's a very straightforward application this evening. The Whites are going to build a home for themselves on this property. It's a 7,500 square foot lot. They're going to build one home. As you can see, Mark Asher has designed it, and in my taste, I think it's just an awesome house, gorgeous house. The only variance we see this evening, as the height variance has been eliminated through the ABFE committee, is to allow a small cabana area off of the one-car garage. This entire structure here, which is a garage and a cabana, is 320 square feet. You can see it here off the top of the driveway, 320 square feet structure. I would refer this more as a technical variance, because in this zone, think about it. In this zone, we're allowed to have a two-car garage at 450 square feet. We have a one-car garage with a cabana attached with a cabana. Garage, what are you allowed to have for a one-car garage? 450 square feet?
Yeah, well, in this zone, you're allowed to have a double garage at 450 square feet.
But even if you have a single-car garage,
Yeah, it'd be 250.
250 square feet. Wall height meets the two-car garage standard. What we are left Roger points out, I guess it's for the size of the accessory structure, but it's really swapping out a two-car garage for a 320-square-foot garage cabana structure. Entire house, and I think you guys will agree.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you very much. Thank
Thank you, Chris.
Whatever your name is.
Does the board have any questions? Is there anyone here from the public who would like to speak? Seeing none, I close the public portion. Does the board have any more discussion?
The condition about, the condition would be a notation on the plans confirming the 9-foot height of the outdoor kitchen. Or is it on there? You're here to say that it's there? Don't.
Notation so much.
Okay.
Stan?
Right, can I submit a letter in that regard?
Yes.
Revised plan?
Yes.
Thank you. This is variance for size of the accessory structure, permitted 80 square feet, 9 feet in height. Requested, my understanding is 100 square feet, 14 feet in height. The applicant gave his reasons through his attorney and compared it to the permitted size of a garage. So it would be a vote in affirmative for C variance relief with the condition that, what is it again? I'm sorry, Mr. Rubin. The condition is the notating the 9-foot height.
Stating that the height of the outdoor kitchen is 9 feet max.
As stated by Mr. Rubin.
Tom Collins?
Do we hear a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the application with the stated conditions.
Would you like to call the roll?
Okay. Tom Collins?
This is a no-brainer, real easy. That property is just absolutely gorgeous. It's going to make a major, major enhancement to that neighborhood, which is already a beautiful neighborhood. I give you a lot of credit for what you're doing, and I know you have a good builder. So I overwhelmingly, the cabana is so minor, and I actually think it's an enhancement instead of needing a variance.
I have to abstain. That whole thing went so fast, I didn't follow it.
Mike Richmond?
Yeah, the variance is behind the house. I really don't see how it's going to have effect on the neighbors, so I'm going to say yes.
Jim Galantino?
Chairman, I say you were eloquently handling this meeting. I vote yes, and for all the conditions as set forth.
Commissioner Colby?
I also vote yes for all the conditions that were mentioned before me.
Michael Cristaldi?
I also vote yes for it.
Craig Palisano?
It's a beautiful project. I vote yes.
David Carter?
Vote yes.
Rich Patterson?
I also vote yes for the same reasons as Dave Carter.
The application passes 8-0.
Next case, Michael Chapman, 437 and 439 Thurlow Avenue, Block 520, Lot 16.01 and 14.01 in the S40 district to grant C variances for house height, roof pitch, deck height, and possibly others. Taxes are current and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied. Mr. Rubin?
Roger Rubin. I do. The subject property is a vacant parcel 120 feet wide by 100 feet deep along the Sunset Canal. There are two lots, with lot 16 being 90 feet wide and lot 14 30 feet wide. Last year, they were by right reconfigured as two 60-foot lots, but that was never recorded, and in any case, the applicant states he will consolidate as one 120-foot wide lot if approved herein. The proposal is for a 5-bedroom, 2-story, single-family home per the plan submitted by architect Asher Associates. The house would have a swimming pool on the left side of the property, several decks and porches, a brick drive to underneath garage parking, extensive landscaping, and other amenities. The building coverage calculates to about half what is allowed. And again, this is only a two-story house in an area where three-story houses are becoming more common. Variances required are the height of the rear yard deck. Elevation 7.7 feet, 1988 datum is permitted versus requested 13.5 feet to conform to the first floor of the house. This variance of 5.8 feet relates only to the 10 feet of deck between the bulkhead and the rear wall of the house. The board has always considered waterfront deck height variances on a case-by-case basis, and site inspections will be helpful to assess impacts, if any, of view obstruction and/or loss of privacy and/or noise impacts. With regard to homes on the open bay, the left side, there's no possible impact due to the distance and angle. There's no view, in fact, to obstruct from that point of view. Regarding the house to the right, or the ocean side, it has a grade level deck, but one day there will no doubt be a replacement house requesting a higher deck. In any case, the 10-foot strip in question and the angle of view toward the open bay are such that it's hard to imagine an impact. Also, the deck in question is about 14 feet to the right side property line. The second variance is for the driveway in front of the garage doors. It's required to be 18 feet as it is a parking space, and it is only a bit over 13 feet, 7 inches to the garage doors. There is a question of pedestrian and automobile safety in short driveway situations, and the board should consider this in light of the particular neighborhood circumstances. It would be a comfort if perhaps the garage doors could be inset at the full 18 feet, eliminating the variance. This would do no harm to the left side interior space, but may create a slightly deficient rear right side interior space. However, it would eliminate the variance as the 2 outside spaces would count, resulting in 4 legal spaces, 2 outside, 2 inside, and 1 undersized space inside. In several other respects, this proposed home improves upon zoning requirements, and the aesthetics of the home and flood-proofing characteristic are inherent benefits to the city and the neighborhood. No conditions are suggested other than as stated above regarding parking, and the requirement for written evidence of lot consolidation should be submitted prior to the execution of the plans.
Members of the board, good evening. My name is Ray Wendt. I'm with the law firm of Hankins, Sandman, and Palladino. I do represent the applicant, Michael Chapman. Just some history behind this property. We do have 2 buildable lots, and this is a very special and I think unique application because we have a bayfront owner who has 2 buildable lots who is going to build just 1 home and put a pool where he could have put a second home. As you see from the agenda, we originally sought a lot of variances, height variance and some others, but we've scaled it back quite a bit. We have, instead of a 2.5-story home, a 2-story home. We have 3 parking spaces, and to make Mr. Rubin even happier, we will agree with his suggestion to set back the garage doors and eliminate that variance. So now we're just talking about the deck. The deck height we're asking for would create a scenario where you could walk straight out from your back room onto the deck without having to step down. That's the most significant reason why we're here. It's a safety issue. Also, looking at where we're located on the water, although our upland is considered Zone A under FEMA, I believe the water, anything waterward of the bulkhead is still V-zone. So our property under the water, I think, is still V-zone. We're not sure what our insurance carrier is going to do about that. So we'd like to have our deck level with the first floor in light of those considerations. This is not unique to the street either because the Peruto family, who lives at 445 Thurlow, just down the street, obtained the same relief, requesting that the deck be level with the first floor so they don't have to step down. And they were awarded or granted a variance for the same purposes. Again, safety. I know because I did the application. As Mr. Rubin pointed out in his report, no views will be impacted. In light of the fact that we've eliminated every single variance possible except for the deck, we think it's justified. The views are open. Mr. Asher's here and can be sworn in to tell you more about the project itself. We think it's about as unique as you get. How many waterfront property owners that have two buildable lots decide not to build both and instead provide a pool which is going to open that space wide open out onto the bay on Thurlow Avenue. With that, I'll leave it. I'll have Mr. Asher sworn in to answer any questions the board might have.
Mark Asher. Yes, I do. Mr. Bailenson doesn't let me talk, so, this is nice. Let me just touch on the parking for a moment, because I wish I'd actually caught that earlier, because I just don't think it's a good thing. We don't really want those parking spaces over the hangover, and actually we're going to pick up a space. We're going to slide two deeper into the garage and then have two legal spaces in front. So it's kind of a win-win. I think it actually will look better too. So I think it's the right thing. With regards to the deck, one correction, it's not actually level with the first floor. We actually are stepping down a riser. So the finished floor, I think, is 50. Separate from here. It's actually more than the finished floor of the house. The finished floor of the house is 15, and the finished floor of the deck is 13.5. So we're actually stepping down a little bit to just mitigate that height of deck to house and then deck to grade. So, that being said, we've touched on so many of the things. It's a relatively small house given its the possibilities of what we could do here. I'm a fan of that when we can do it and talk people into a slightly smaller house. I think it's great, gaining traction. That's a whole nother topic. But there it is. And I think, as Mr. Rubin points out in his testimony, or in his letter, we don't think there's really any negative impact on neighbors. Obviously, the pool side is to the open water, and I think we're far enough away from the oceanside neighbor to really not have any substantial view issues there either. So, lovely project, lots of landscaping, and lovely thing.
Mr. Asher, Jim Galantino.
Yes.
How you doing? Good to see you. The V-zone has to touch the property, the structure, to be considered V-zone construction.
Right.
I just looked on the map, and you were out of the V-zone, you're still in the A-zone.
Correct.
So the V-zone is past the bulkhead line. It looks like it's right at the bulkhead. So, go ahead, Raj.
But this house was under the V-zone, under the ABFEs. That's not an issue here.
I know, but he didn't...
They're entitled to the height they're showing.
Correct.
For this house.
I just want to offer the advice, if he wants to take advantage of the no V-zone construction, he can.
Well, yeah, I think that we'll probably use an A-zone construction.
Okay.
But that's another story.
Okay. I didn't know if you plotted it out to see where to...
Well, I've got, as all of us, I have FEMA whiplash. We've got a lot going on in all these towns, and we're up, we're down, we are all over the place. But here, it seems kind of like a win-win, because it is obviously a flood-prone area. I think I still like the aesthetic that we have here, where it's not a big solid masonry base. There are going to be these, even if the panels are not break away, we sort of like that aesthetic here. So.
You say you concur with Roger's suggestion relative to parking?
I do. I think it's an improvement, frankly.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, so we're just going to eliminate that variance.
Now, question on the height of this deck. If I'm reading your drawings correctly, the top of the bulkhead is at 6.3 feet elevation. And the lower deck, which runs the length of the lagoon side of the house, is at 13.5. That means the top of that deck is going to be 7.2 feet above the top of the bulkhead.
Correct.
That's the height of the top of that door frame above the floor. I went out there and stood today on the bulkhead, and then I stood up and there's a little platform that goes down to the dock. And trying to envision that thing at that height, it's just massive. The whole lagoon has nothing comparable to that.
Ray, you said you handled the case of Peruto up the street?
I did.
Did you happen to check the file? What was the height of her deck?
It was 11 feet.
11 feet, 29 days? Because she did that a couple of years ago.
It was a few years ago, and...
Is 11 feet 88 dated?
Yes, and the situation that was different there is we weren't looking for parking under the house or the FEMA situation. That bumped us up another 2.5 feet to get to 13 and plus where we're at now.
Okay.
We had a detached garage situation there, which we obtained another variance for. Here, we've eliminated all variances but for the deck to accommodate parking, now 4 spaces of parking where we only need 3. Honestly, I've never seen a property owner with this type of lot situated the way it is give up a 2.5-story home or give up the option of selling both lots or keeping one. And if you look at how he's building all over what would be the property line if he'd subdivided. If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Asher, he's building on both lots if he had subdivided. So this is permanent. This is not, I'm building on one lot and I'm telling you I'm putting a pool here. He's building on both lots. There's nothing like it in Margate. I can't think of one property that's new construction where you're going to find 2 buildable lots being built as one with an extremely undersized home that is asking for 1 variance, a 10-foot deck.
I don't have any problem at all with the 14.7 elevation deck that sets back within the lagoon face of the house. Now, you've already stepped down 1.2 feet to the rest of the deck. There's no reason you couldn't step down more.
Mr. Asher might be able to speak to this better, but I mean, once you get to more than 1 or 2 steps, you are getting into safety issues. You're talking into a 4 or 5 step lean into what will be closer to the railing than the actual door that you're walking out of, which will essentially split the deck in half.
You put handrails on it. You tell me every step more than 2 is essentially a hazard and shouldn't be done? That's nonsense.
I would argue that less steps, more safety.
Well, obviously, we backed our way into it vis-a-vis the V zone. And then, of course, find positive things in that. We're getting a house up in the air, we're getting more parking, and so on. So I have a house up in the air, now how do I get down to the ground? As I said earlier, the deck is not at the finished floor. We've already stepped down 18 inches. And I think at some point, you're going to have some deck up at that finished floor level because you're going to have doors, you're going to have a landing, you're going to have to get outside. Again, I think we took a mitigating step. If there needs to be more, well, that's for this board to decide. Maybe this is not the situation if I had, that would be not as strong an argument if I had houses on either side of me 5 feet away and 5 feet below me. That's, again, how we arrive here.
Any other questions from the board? Is anyone here from the public who would like to speak? Seeing none, I close the public portion. Any other comments or questions from the board? Would you like to phrase the motion?
The motion would be for C variance for a rear yard deck. Permitted is elevation 7.7 feet, request is 13.5 feet, which is a 5.8-foot variance. It would be a motion in the affirmative for that C variance with those types of modifications.
And the conditions would be as 8 sets of revised plans showing the revision to the parking as set forth in my review, and any changes to the plans required by the city engineer's letter of June 10th, which you have a copy, Mr. Wendt. Yes. And satisfaction of the city engineer. And in addition to that, evidence of lot consolidation prior to execution of the plans.
I'll second.
Tom Collins?
Yeah, this is a funny case for me because this is one of my pet peeves. I understand what Clem was saying in his comments, but the problem of the deck height over the bulkhead is not that the deck is so high, it's that our bulkheads in the city are so low. And this board has talked for many months now about convening and raising that up to maybe at least 11 or more. And I know Commissioner Tobey and Mayor Becker have heard it over and over again. We need to get the bulkheads up. If the bulkheads were up, we might not have had, we don't know for sure, as much damage from Sandy because of all the low bulkheads. For safety, convenience, aesthetics, I mean, Mr. Ashner, you must have the most magnificent imagination because I've seen 2 of your houses now, and they are just outstanding. The improvement to the neighborhood, the betterment for the city, the betterment for the waterway that we're going to get, I mean, absolutely hands down. I am totally 100% in favor of this. The deck is integral in safety, and you know, you get out on a wet surface and you're coming out of a house and you slip.
Is that a yes vote?
That's a yes vote.
Okay. Clem Wasleski?
But say more, come on. Just call me every Monday.
I think a deck this height along there is totally out of keeping with the character of the lagoon. I don't see any reasonable justification for it. And I don't think granting this variance would meet any of the reasons for granting variances under the Land Use Act. I vote against it.
Mike Richmond?
The deck is in back of the house. I think that it's pretty eclectic going down that canal there, and I don't really see any ill effect to the neighbors or the area in general, so I'm going to vote yes.
Jim Galantino?
This is difficult because you want B-zone construction houses along the bay, but now that FEMA changed the maps, you have A-zones back in the picture. I agree with Tom Collins. I think eventually we are going to have to move the bulkhead heights up to keep the water out, because every time we look, we're getting more and more water from the back bays into the back streets of Margate. For the C variance and rear yard step back, I vote yes.
Commissioner Colby?
I think the variance is de minimis, in my opinion, and I think especially considering the new beautiful home our community is going to gain, so I vote yes.
Mike Cristaldi?
A few months back, we agreed on a deck that was pretty high down right at the end there. And Peruto's deck. I don't see it's going to be a problem, and I agree with Jim that we're going to definitely end up with higher bulkheads, and this is just going to end up consistent. So I vote yes for this.
Craig Palisano?
Due to the increased water levels, and I've seen a lot of decks that were destroyed by the storm on the fronts of houses, on the bay fronts, I vote yes for the project.
David Carter?
I live with a very high deck, and I vote yes.
Rich Patterson,
This is a spectacular house. I don't think it would be any less spectacular with a deck that wasn't so out of place. I understand the bulkheads could be higher, but even the deck, which I voted against last time with his neighbor, is over 3 feet lower than this deck. Again, standing on the bulkhead and having that deck more than 2 feet above your head, I think it's out of place, and I vote no.
the application passes 7-2.
Thank you. Is there any public participation?
Yes.
You're not the public. Okay, no public participation. Roger has something to say.
Yes. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, as you know, FEMA came out with new preliminary maps on the end of business, June 14th, which kind of changed a lot of the ABFE maps that they came out with last November. They eliminated the V zones and they lowered the elevations of most of the A zones. We had a meeting, Jimmy Galantino and I, and representatives of Ventnor and Longport, with our solicitor, Scott Abbott, the very next week on the 17th, and we determined that legally those new maps were automatically the law of the land, and that anything that was submitted prior to that moment could be proceeded with under the old ABFE. Anything submitted after that was under the new changed regulations. Nevertheless, the ordinance that you recommended to the commissioners as a board and that was passed this January of 2013 does have to be fine-tuned, amended, and tinkered with. You remember there was a planner by the name of Stuart Weiser from Remington and Vernick who did that enormous job. He's come back in, he's already started to revise what he did in January, and it has to come before you to recommend to the commissioners so that they can revise the ordinance. So everything is 100% tied, nailed down and tied up.
Will he cost as much as he did last time?
No, way less, about 1/3.
Okay.
About 1/3. Good question.
I thought when we did it last time that we were just going to float with FEMA and we wouldn't have to go through this again.
No, if you read the ordinance itself, it says that certain things will have to be changed. If the map's changed, up until the time that the firm map comes out, that would be, then you don't have to change anything. See, what they did was they called them advisory in November. Now they call them preliminary.
I understand that, but we knew that at the time, and I thought we designed it that we would, whatever FEMA said, we would be 28 feet over that.
We did, and yet we still need to tinker with it because there's certain language that our attorneys want us to have tied down.
Maybe Mr. Weiser wanted more work to...
No, we sorted him out. Him out. Mr. Abbott thought it would be a good idea. So, consequently, because we have another heavy agenda on the 25th, Thursday the 25th of July, 5 or 6 cases, we've set up, with the approval of the chairman, blame it on him, an additional special meeting Tuesday the 23rd. We'd like you all to come out. I think it'll be less than an hour for Mr. Weiser to present the revisions to the ordinance, explain exactly what he's done. There may be 1 or 2 little decisions to be made, and then you will pass a resolution of recommendation to the city commissioners on the 23rd. It'll then go to the commissioners. They'll have a first and second reading in August, and we'll be completely, under control. So that will be 7 p.m. on Tuesday the 23rd, and 7 p.m. on Thursday the 25th. You will get double pay that month.
You're going to buy us dinner if we all come next night?
Yeah, at Johnny's.
Your motion to adjourn the meeting?
7 o'clock both times, both nights. I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Second?
Be careful in the
Who's seconding?
Jimmy did. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes.
At the last minute. I knew it was my parents. I heard that's Galantino. They did, but you know what? That's good.
So that's July 23rd.